when people say, "Oh, Oregon State," what do you talk about? Like, what is the dialogue, and what do you think the reputation is of the school that you spent 2.5 years at?
It's exactly what you just said. Blue collar, hard nose. We know nothing's going to be given to us, but we don't mind that. We kind of embrace that role, and we thrive in being the underdog. Now, here we are now, 20 some years fast forward almost, and the young student athletes now is not talking like that. They want to be the elite guy or the elite young lady. They want their team recognized, and so you can definitely see where we started and where we are, and it makes me just very proud.
The it factor, the most overused and undefinable phrase in sports. If you have it, everyone knows it.
Trent McDuffie applying the lumber.
The qualities that many desire, but very few possess.
Dropped in the backfield by Thibodeau.
What really is it? Who has it? And how did they get it?
Britton Covey gives Utah a jolt of momentum.
That's what we're here to discover. We'll take the helmet off the Pac-12's elite performers to learn more about their journey towards success on Saturdays. I'm Yogi Roth, and welcome to the It Factor. Welcome back, or welcome to the It Factory presented by Zayo. I'm your host, Yogi Roth, and you know the deal in this show. We take the helmet off of the current or former college football player in this conference and dive into who they are, their essence. And today, I'm excited because we're talking to Steven Jackson. Yes, that Steven Jackson. And he has recently been inducted into the Pac-12 Hall of Honor, which is across all sports every year. 12 athletes get selected. He's representing, of course, Oregon State University, and really excited to have him. And when you look at the things he's done in his career, man, it's impressive. Had the single season best rushing yardage in the history of Oregon State football, was an All-American, high draft pick. In fact, when he got drafted, he was the highest draft pick in the history of Oregon State football in 40 years when you look back at what Oregon State has done in his time there. He's done so many things, and we even played against each other. So we're going to dive into a lot of that and have some fun. So with that, welcome in a Hall of Honor inductee, one of the top players in history in this league, Steven Jackson. Welcome in, man.
Thank you. What's up, Yogi? How you been?
Bro, I've been good. It's been a minute since we've been able to catch up.
It has been far too long, but these days I take every day as a true present, and I'm glad that I could share this day with you today and talk about some of the past and what we have going right now.
Yeah, I'm really excited about your lens on life, but I want to start like my lens. As I'm looking at you, I see over your right shoulder a sign that says happiness.
Yes, yes.
And I think right now in athletics, a lot of current players come on the show or guys entering into the draft, and happiness, we all feel when we play, right? Then at some point it turns into stress, and how you manage that, or expectations, or whatever it is, draft status or evaluations just coming off the combine. How have you dealt with that word in your career? Did you ever feel unhappy in your career? And if so, what were some of the tools that you might advise young athletes to utilize now?
Sure. So over my shoulder, I'm a big Monopoly fan, and it has some of the messaging, as you said, about the happiness. It says not something you can buy, and just little tidbits of wisdom given to me in a form of a game, but it matters to all of us at the end of the day. And obviously, the game brings a lot of things to celebrate, brings about challenges that you have these goals, and then you meet them as an individual, as a team. You feel really good about the work you put in. But then there's some dark times as well, as you kind of hinted at, where happiness kind of seemed to be far, and you can't seem to find it or tap into what used to make you happy. You have to find something else to get that outlet. So, I mean, the game of football, obviously, when you break records, you win games, you're happy. Put it into work, and you don't feel like you're getting recognized. You start questioning, like, what does all this mean? Is it all for naught? And what I always constantly went back to was the game and why I fall in love with it, and simply because of the rules of engagement around it. If you put in the work, you put in the time, you dedicate it, you uplift yourself and your teammates, you find little nuggets of salvation and little nuggets of just satisfaction, and those little nuggets become to be bigger boulders, and those boulders, you chip away at them, sometimes have gold in them. And I was fortunate enough to find that.
Yeah, you found that many times in your career. When you got the call, or how did it work for you in the Hall of Honor? When did you find out? How did you find out that you were going to get inducted in this year's class?
The athletic director, Scott Barnes for Oregon State University, gave me a call, and I sit on his board, his athletic director's board. And when the call came through, I thought it was something about bowl related. And he goes, "Hey, Steven, I just want you to inform you, Oregon State and the Pac-12 want to honor you." And I was like, well, I was taken back. So that's how I found out the news. It was broken to me in that light. Then I had to go back and look at some of the other, athletes that I'm joining in this honor with, and I'm just humbled by it. Not because I didn't believe it's deserving, but my time at Oregon State was so short. It was lightning in a bottle, where some of these other great names had, are staples in the university in a sense of, because of the longevity there, where I was just in Corvallis 2.5 years. And to be able to make that kind of impact, not only on the university, but in the conference as well, is very humbling to see, to still have people remember that.
Yeah, I think as we get older, right? Like I try to always tell athletes, I'm sure you do the same, of like, trust us, it goes fast, soak it up. But you made good on a promise to your parents about getting a degree. So while your time playing went fast at Oregon State, your time there has kind of been elongated because you finished your degree recently. What did that mean to you to finish the degree? We've all seen the video when you present it to your mom and she gets all emotional, but to make good on the commitment you made to her around this game that you were referencing. The rules of engagement are also, can you complete something? You completed this degree.
Yeah, it was a big time. It was, my mom and dad raised my sisters and I was the only one to be able to go to university. So getting to that point and not coming home with a diploma, I could always tell, it was a job not finished. And when I debated on foregoing my senior year, the one thing my mom kept asking me was, "Are you going to go back and finish your education?" And I told her, I said, if you grant me, your blessings to leave school early, I'll definitely go back. In my mind at that time, in 2004, I thought it was going to be maybe if I was lucky, a 5-year run, National Football League, try to make the most of that time, that window, and see what happens from there. But fortunately enough, I had a better career than 5 years, and I just kept getting further away from school. And I could tell my mom didn't think I was going to go back. And sure enough, I didn't initially tell her I was back enrolled. It was a surprise. But as the moments kept getting closer and closer, and the graduation was coming up, and then you had the formalities was changing with COVID, I have to tell her something, right? So I was, not going to be a traditional kind of graduation, but it was one that's so fitting towards me. The video that you reference is, I have a terrible time of celebrating my accomplishments in myself. So me giving her that diploma and the cap and gown in a box that was sent in the mail was so fitting like me. It was so me, but it was just very genuine. And what you witnessed was, it was a lot of years of school was just frustrating in part. It was just it was something that I'd enjoyed for a long time. And my mom as a parent and my dad trying to keep me motivated and help me see the bigger picture in education. It was one that I could tell you she was very, very happy, proud, but one that was like relief that some of the messages that she gave me over the years, it did sink in and I did listen.
You touched on a chord there that I think a lot of athletes feel, right? If we're going to be real, you go to college sometimes to go play your sport, right? You wanted to go to Oregon State because you felt like you could thrive there, and you did. I went to Pitt because I was like, I can go play there. I knew I'd have an opportunity to play there. But as you're there and you get encompassed and encumbered around the academic community, you're kind of like, oh, this could be cool, or you get frustrated. When you felt those moments of possible frustration while you were in college, how did you deal with that, knowing that A, you had to stay eligible, but B, you had your mom and dad probably ringing in the back of your mind of, hey, you're going to get your degree. I hope you get your degree.
Yeah. Fortunate enough, the one thing when I left Vegas and went to Oregon State, the one rule in my house was you have to do your homework, right? So that was embedded in me. Study hall, going to class, doing homework was just second nature. It was like, you can't play football unless this is done. And that kind of like ringed in my ear throughout my time at Oregon State. But when you start getting those challenging classes or the professor that just don't want to hear it, right? The professors is just like a nightmare. And what kept returning back to me was I was making myself better. And when I thought about it in likeness of football or sport, you go to film to make yourself better. You watch the game. You know you're going to mess up, or you had a couple of oops, and you can't go to the bathroom because coach is going to pause and wait for you to get back, right? So it was that thing that reminded me that homework, tests, studying, all these things were making me better. I just had to continue to put in the work, and eventually it'll come to fruition.
Still to come on the It Factory.
What do you want from this? What are you trying to accomplish? You know, do you just want to be the next superstar, or are you trying to have some longevity? Or are you trying to build some lineage for your family? And it may be all the above, but it might just be one or two things. And then you, after you get them to look at themselves in the mirror, and you talk to them about, well, now here's temptation, and with temptation comes people that want to take that away.
Want to get Granny a gift? Come help Daddy.
Oh.
Help Daddy.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my Lord. Is this it? Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God, son. Oh, Jesus.
I want you to hold the real thing first. There you
Oh,
go.
well, I can take this off.
There you go.
Oh, they put your whole name on there. Oh, this is so, oh my God. Oh, thank you, Lord God. I just thank you. I thank you. Son, I thank you. God, I thank you, Jesus. God, this is everything. Boy, this year just been my year.
When you were at Oregon State, you guys had success. You were behind two different leaders, right? You had Coach Erickson and you had Mike Riley. When that transition happened for you, what was that like? And when you look back on your career, do you think of games? Do you think of moments? Do you think of your teammates? Where does your head go?
The beginning of your question was, you know, the two head coaches. And I was really fortunate to have two NFL experienced coaches, right? So these men recognize my talent and say, you have a shot at the NFL. You know, you do these things and you trust me. You know, you give yourself a really good chance to make it to the NFL. Coach Erickson was one that was a player's coach. He wanted to make sure we were always like light on our feet. Didn't have a lot of long practices, and the responsibility was more in the film room, the classroom, and execution. Perfect plays he was really big on perfect plays. Where Coach Riley, he was a ground worker. You know, 3-hour practice, long grueling workouts, but very nice, right? So even when you wanted to be mad, he was so chipper. He was so happy about life and football that the work you were putting in, you found satisfaction in it. So those two personalities and those two differences allowed for me to prepare for my football journey, where when I got to the Rams, I had 6 coaches in 9 years, I believe I'm counting right, my interim coaches and head coaches. So transition, I learned early in college football that you're going to get new leadership. You had to adjust to it. Taking care of your body, putting in the work, all those things. I got little breadcrumbs in Corvallis. And then you talking about how do you get through it? How do you motivate yourself or your teammates? It was just the challenges. Like I embraced them so much. I knew it every season was going to bring about something that we wasn't expecting. And how do you overcome that? And the more I embraced that role, the more I saw me as a football player grow. Then I kind of stepped into the leadership role. And then that's how I was taking, like Mike Riley, for instance. He was so chipper when things were down sometimes. It was like, tap into that example that I witnessed. And I was able to just take all of that from different people throughout my journey.
I feel like, you know, in the time we've been around each other, or I talk to people that you were around in the NFL or your old coaches, everybody defined you as like, this guy was just a pro in everything that you did. What made you decide, hey, I want to go to Oregon State to choose or to chase the dream that I have, which is potentially to be a pro? Because you could have gone a lot of places, man. I looked at your recruiting profile. You were as big as any of the backs that they had that year in the country.
Two folds. I'm a bigger back, right? I'm a big back. So a lot of people wanted me to play defense. They were like, well, we can definitely see a linebacker DN. And, you know, I really enjoyed scoring touchdowns. I just wanted to give us the jubilation of scoring a touchdown. So that kind of made some of the decision easier on me because these universities were upfront about how they wanted and how they saw my future. Then you had some of the other schools more closely to the West Coast that recruited me probably from freshman, sophomore year that believed in my talent. It was just, how does it fit? Will it work for us? And as you just continue, I put some bullet points together, like, you know, head coach. I wanted him to have some NFL ties because I was just dead set on going to the NFL. Then, you had the running backs are on the roster. Well, Oregon State had two senior guys, and Ken Simonton and Patrick McCall. So if anything, if I redshirt, I give myself a good chance of starting as a freshman. So some of these laundry list of things in education, how is the school and the colleges within it? How's the alumni, right? A lot of things we don't ask ourselves as a young teenager. Alumni is really big for our viewers because it's your network. And then you think about a small college town versus a big city. Although I'm from Las Vegas, my parents are very hands-on. So a lot of my time away from the house was in Arkansas with my grandparents. So although I grew up in a big city, I didn't have, this carte blanche come and go kind of household. So a small town is going to be a little bit calming for my mom, but also allow me to grow as a man. And if I did make these mistakes, I wasn't going to be plastered all on some of these big, these newspapers. So some of those things that we really dove in and thought about, and it just kept coming back to like a small town college. And then as you narrow that down even more, it got to Corvallis.
I love that. Like every time I go to a college town, I have like a little cafe or like a yoga spot that I always go to. And Corvallis is one of my favorites, man, because it's just so quaint, right? It's got that, especially in the fall, right? Just the total vibe about it. When you walk back on campus now and your opportunities to get back around there, where does your head go from a nostalgia standpoint?
To the young person that I was when I first, stepped on campus, 2001, 17-year-old kid, and I didn't know quite what I was stepping into, but at first fall practice, you see these guys, you had Chad Johnson, you had, not Chad wasn't there, he had just left, but he was my host. But you have Ken Simonton, you had Jonathan Smith, the head coach that's there now. You had some of these linebackers, Nick Barnett, who went to play for the Green Bay Packers. And you see the talent, and I'm like, wow, like they were in my shoes just a year ago or 2 years ago, and now they're all Americans. Like that could be me. And they didn't have it cultivated in a small town where you get to anywhere in 5 minutes. The staff was willing to help, but players and teammates and students, everybody was so supportive that everybody wanted to be a part of something that was good and bigger than what we ourselves were.
It's amazing to hear you say that because, I came out to the Pac-10 in 2004, right? So I've been out about 16, 17 years now. And of course now the Pac-12, but I played against Oregon State. We played against each other in the Insight Bowl in 2002, right? Remember Larry Fish, the diving catch?
Yeah.
I know he's told you about that on your travels together. But I can remember watching the film being like, damn, you had those two long corners, obviously yourself. We don't have to get into the game. I remember what happened in that ball game.
Yeah. I had a big one run and it got called back. I was like,
know.
well, it's going to be that kind of day.
It was that kind of day, man. I remember that like yesterday. But just watching you guys, we had so much respect for the type of players, right? It reminded me a lot of like where we were in Pittsburgh. Like it was like hard-nosed, chip on the shoulder. Some guys were overlooked. Some guys came there with a purpose like Larry, much like you, to go be a pro. He felt like he could do it through Pitt. But that to me is like the vibe. So now, as you've played in over a decade in the NFL, you've been all over the globe. We're going to get into your travels for a minute. Like when people say, "Oh, Oregon State," what do you talk about? Like, what is the dialogue, and what do you think the reputation is of the school that you spent 2.5 years at?
It's exactly what you just said. Blue collar, hard nosed. We know nothing's going to be given to us, but we don't mind that. We kind of embrace that role, and we thrive in being the underdog. Now, here we are now, 20-some years fast forward almost, and the young student athletes now is not talking like that. They want to be the elite guy or the elite young lady. They want their team recognized. And so you can definitely see where we started and where we are, and it makes me just very proud to stick my chest out, because when I got there, winning was very far few between, and just getting something established was the goal. Now to have established and see Guy year after year go to the National Football League, the last 9 Super Bowls, there's been a Beaver represented in some form or fashion, right? So it shows that the seeds have been planted and everyone's have bought into that. So when I talk of Oregon State, I talk about where we've been and where we're headed, but more importantly, it's about the student athlete or the student willing to put in the work, where some people want to have things given to them.
Yeah, what an interesting segue, right? Again, over your shoulder, you have a quote that says, "You'll never go broke investing in yourself." we're in an era of college football that you didn't live in, I didn't live in, right? You can transfer immediately. Name, image, and likeness is prevalent. Guys are getting paid. Some are making great deals. Some are making questionable deals. It's across the board and not a lot of regulation. I went on your social media and you gave a quick guide to this, as you said, new adventure. Can you talk through like your guide to what you would say to a student athlete who might want it real fast because that's the environment that is just our reality today in college football?
I think, when I talk to student athletes about this very thing about NIL, you want to talk to them about brands, you want to talk about having a framework, but before I even get that far into it, I have to ask them, what do you want from this? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you just want to be the next superstar? Or are you trying to have some longevity? Are you trying to build some lineage for your family? And it may be all the above, but it might just be one or two things. And then after you get them to look at themselves in the mirror and you talk to them about, well, now here's temptation. And with temptation comes people that want to take that away. You have to guard yourself with a team around you. It's no different than a team that you sign up for to be a part of. You don't know everybody in the locker room the first day, and you may not get to know everybody on the last day of the game, but you get to learn them and you get to understand how they operate and how you can trust them, and you could trust what they're good at and what they're not good at. So you have to build a team around you. So I always encourage student athletes, make sure you have a no person in your group. If it's your parents or a friend who's willing to say no, every idea you come up with is not going to be great. And you might not even have the time, and if it is great, but you also need to, guard yourself with people that have the network of understanding the bigger picture of what you want to accomplish. And as you build these building blocks out, it kind of gives you a little bit more of a strategic way of saying, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I want to accomplish. And it's chasing dollars, because every partnership's not going to work out. Every dollar that you make, sometimes you're going to regret, some of the things you had to go through to make that dollar, but also, does it represent who you want to be in the long term? And some of our student athletes are not asking themselves this, or they're not getting the guidance on these things to make sure that you ask yourself, truly, what is it that I'm trying to get out of this? I was always big in my own personal journey that I was okay with one or two big deals. I didn't have to be all over television. I didn't have to be all in newspapers. But if I had one or two brands that was willing to walk in lockstep with me side by side, it helped me build out my brand in the way that I see fit, or that it made sense for both of us. It helped me a lot more because other brands saw that and they became more attracted to someone like myself that wasn't all over the place, but I was very strategic about how I wanted to present myself to the world.
Coming up on the It Factory.
Right now I'm watching Kanye West documentary, and his mom, Donda, the late Donda West, she says to him, it's okay to have your heads in the clouds, but keep your feet on the ground. And it was very, like, when I heard it, I was like, whoa, like, so true.
Yeah, I love this dialogue. I get to work with high school quarterbacks often, and it's so unique because they're told from, you could argue 14 years old if you're offered in 8th grade, or 16, 17 if you're offered later in high school, but you're told who you are. You're the big back. Steven Jackson, you're a big back, but you could kill it as an outside linebacker. Like, you're literally told who you are. And I think that a lot of times, that's why I love your advice of like, hey, pause, man. Like, people are telling you you're a 3 or 4 or 5-star player, but like, none of that means anything. What do you want to be? Where do your interests lie? For you, it seemed as though your interests continue to grow into travel. And I've talked to, Larry's told me about you guys and seeing the world. You've traveled all over the globe. What about that like grabbed you, the itch to use the sport to leverage yourself to be able to see this vast planet that we have?
Got into travel, been to over 40 countries, almost 50 now. But in these travels, what I realized was it allowed me to take a step back and take a deep breath. The very thing we were just talking about young athletes, like, hold on. So that after the football season was over, I took the month of February and I traveled. And I would pick a region, let's say it'd be Asia, pick 4 or 5 countries within that region, and I just spent a week or however long I chose and just dove into the culture. What I realized in these travels was it allowed me to hit a reset without people that knew me from America and what I was doing. I didn't hear how great I was for a month, but it also gave me time to reflect on the things I've accomplished, right? So reflecting on the things I've accomplished, not hearing how great I was on a daily basis for a month, allowed for me to set new goals, but also be appreciative that everyone is not as blessed that I was. Because a lot of these countries, life is a lot more challenging outside of America. And you see the challenges and you see the hard work that these people are putting in, but they still doing it with a smile. You see these small families that's going around and, their school may only have a dirt floor. They don't even have, a true floor or a true roof over their learning experience. But some kind of way they still found jubilation in it. So it just reminded me that no matter if I wasn't acknowledged for an SB or if I wasn't acknowledged for this, and that, my life is not as bad as I make it out to be. It just gave me greater perspective. So then as you see these things, you're like, oh wow, so if that's how it is in Thailand, well, how is it in South Africa? So then you just start picking spots around the globe, and every place unveiled a new lesson to me. And I just kept digging and digging, and I felt that vastness of experience and knowledge just made me better, not only on the football field, but as a leader. Because there were some challenges time in St. Louis where things wasn't as sunny, and that wasn't as I would hope that it would be as an experience in National Football League. But those travels and meeting those people in my travels helped me see the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm a fellow traveler as well, and I've been going since I moved to Australia when I finished playing, and I went and played American football over there, which exists.
Nice.
And it was awesome. Our quarterback was 40 and our center was 18, right? And I felt like Larry Fitzgerald. Like no one was, like everybody was just my skill set basically. But what I loved is that, and I believe this, when we travel, we go to see something specific, whether it's Machu Picchu or the island of Bali or wherever it may be, but ultimately we see ourselves in a different light outside of our facility in which we are a big fish. For you, as you've gotten further and further away from the game, have you finally been able to celebrate yourself a little bit, whether you're on a travel and you're reflecting, as you reference every February, or now that you're retired and say, yeah, you know what? Did a hell of a job. Like, I'm a Pac-12 Hall of Honor. Like, I'm top 20 career rushing yards in the history of the NFL.
No, I don't. Yogi, I haven't. I still haven't. I'm better. I'm so hard on myself. My wife, my mom, my dad, everyone's trying to get me to be more reflective and appreciative. Other things I was able to accomplish. I've just never been a pat myself on the back kind of guy. I'm trying to learn to do that more because I've always just like check a box and go on to the next thing that I want to accomplish. So like a week like this week coming up will allow for me to, take a deep breath and kind of reflect on the journey. But going back to Australia before I forget, I did surf in Bondi Beach. I was up for I was up for like 3 seconds or maybe 2.5, but but it was a great experience, and it's just one of those things, the game of football, I went there to get education. The education turned into a professional career, which led to me being able to see the world, and it's played a big role in my life. So, so going back to also the part, don't mean to cut you off. I mentor young athletes as well, and I give lectures on NIL at my alumni at Oregon State, but also my kids are football. My oldest son is a freshman football player here, and talking to his teammates or talking to other teams around the city, just giving back in any kind of way, having a listening ear, giving them a quick word of wisdom is kind of where I see my value and what I enjoy. Yeah.
You have so much value in that regard. So I want to do an exercise with you, if you will. So we're talking about self-compassion. And I think a lot of athletes, it's hard to have it, right? My therapist would say, it's the first session I ever had. She's like, you're terrible at self-compassion. Terrible. Like, acknowledge life for a minute. So with that said, in the chat here, we've got the letter that you wrote at 10 years old about your dream, a poem. I'm wondering if you could read that for us, and then we could talk about it.
I am an NFL running back. I wonder if I would be great. I hear the crowd cheer. I see me scoring a touchdown. I want to win a Super Bowl ring. I'm a great running back. I feel like I'm a star. I touch the first place trophy. I worry we won't win. I cry if I fail. I am an NFL running back. I understand some will be greater. I say what I mean. I dream to be the greatest. I try to be the best. I hope I'll be remembered as one of the greatest. I am an NFL running back. Pretty powerful 14-year-old.
You spoke it into existence.
Yes, I did.
So let's just for a minute, let's go to maybe the one weakness you've admitted that you might have, which is patting yourself on the back. Think about that for a minute. I want to be one of the greats. Second to last line. You are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, can you sit in that for a minute? Like, how does that feel? Just immerse yourself in that line.
It feels like warm water, you know? When you say immerse myself in it, it's like I'm getting goosebumps right now. Pretty cool. But yeah, it's one of those things that you're so driven. And some of us that are driven and share these passions about things we want to accomplish, you get so deep in the woods or in the weeds of it. You know, you're like, I know what I want. I know what I believe I need to do to get there. But to bask in it and say, I actually did it. It's hard. It's hard at times, but it's, you know, like you just helped me do. Sitting in it, it just gives me a warm feeling, like a big hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say that because I think the athletes that you're mentoring, right? You reference you have a son who's a freshman. You're mentoring athletes at Oregon State, and you've got a huge platform, right, on your own social media. I think athletes need to hear that a lot, right? I think parents need to hear like, hey, just pause for a second. Like, you got a sophomore year in high school coming up, or you got a third year in college coming up. Like, just enjoy the you know what out of it. The relationships, the time, the friends, the coaches, training camp versus what's the next deal I can go sign. I got to keep building my brand. Where's my logo at? What's my website look like? And here you are as one of the greats. And I just think that your reverberation around feeling it.
Yeah.
And taking a minute and like as the phrase is, right, be where your feet are and feeling your toes in the ground.
Oh, it's big time. You know, grounding is big. I'm right now watching Kanye West documentary, and his mom, Donda, the late Donda West, she says to him, "It's okay to have your heads in the clouds, but keep your feet on the ground." And it was very like when I heard it, I was like, "Whoa!" Like so true. You know, it's okay to have your heads in the cloud. You know, it's okay to have big dreams, big aspirations, but keep yourself grounded. Keep the good people around you to help you remember what it's all about. It's not about the next deal all the time. It's not about, you know, seeing your name in on ESPN ticker. It's not about all that, because sometimes with other things that you may not be ready for. But if you keep yourself grounded, keep those right people around you, you can get through anything.
The right people around you. You've had a lot of leaders in your career. I'm going to rattle off some names. We talked about your college head coaches, Mike Martz, Joe Vitt, Scott Lenahan, Jim Haslett, Steve Spagnuolo, Jeff Fisher, Mike Smith, Bill Belichick. You've been around leadership.
Yeah.
Jonathan Smith, to me, he's got it entrenched at Oregon State, right? This thing's about to take the next step. What have you noticed around leadership that's so critical to bear success for players, staff, the entire building, the facility, the community of that respective program or organization?
All those men you just mentioned, the one thing is consistency, you know, knowing that when I show up, they're going to be there, and they're going to be there, you know, maybe not always with a smile on their face, but I know that coach is going to be in a corner, that corner office. And if I need to go talk to him, get something off my chest, maybe even express what the team's feeling, you know, I could go and give that knock on the door, and they will welcome with a welcoming ear. And that will be the second thing, not only being available and dependable, but having that listening ear. And leadership, a lot of people look for the consistency of that individual. They look for that ear, know that they could get whatever on their chest off to them and they're being heard. But also framing a goal for all of us to want that enlighten us together, no matter how big your role is on the team or how small it is on the team. But know that you have a place in that role, and it's going to be significant at one point where you may not expect it. A person goes down on the team and you got to step up. Hey, here's your chance. Here's your time to shine, in the sense of here's your role. This is what you're preparing for. Believe in yourself. So, you know, being able to get these wishes and these hopes, maybe even some of these fears off your chest, having someone be able to listen to you, knowing that they're dependable and that door is always going to be open. That leadership is strong in a different sense of the way we may envision a strong leader. You know,
Yeah. How about a lot of players in this league listen to this show? What would you tell them? Because I hear from a lot of players, they're like, my coach asked me to be a leader this year, this spring. I don't know how.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you say?
They need to come up. That individual should come up for themselves a schedule. And what I mean by that is, let's just say you get up every morning at 6 a.m. and maybe you take the first 10 minutes of that morning as a reflection time, sitting and meditating, whatever you choose to spend that 10, 15 minutes in silence. Let your thoughts be free, let it go through. You're going to have all kinds, but eventually it'll settle down and you can reflect on the day that you would like to have or the things you'd like to accomplish. From that, build it out. Maybe it's go to work out, maybe it's to eat healthy, maybe it's to go, carve out an hour of study. But if you can build out your day in a framework that it gives other people a chance to know not only when you'll be available, but two, you set a standard. Being available, setting a standard, and being consistent. Those alone, one can do on their own. They don't need anybody else. You can do it on your own, but people start to take notice. Then as you become more comfortable in that, now words of influence. Now the things you say, people could actually trust and feel that it is authentic and true because they only know you to do what you say you're going to do. And then the personality of the individual will take over. And the reason people want to follow them or why they love them will come out more and more.
So for you, I love that word love. What is filling up like your cup right now? What is it that you're loving doing right now in your life?
So what I'm loving right now is it's still a little bit in education and leadership, but I have a clothing line called OBS. And the brand is the email is obsbrand.com. But OBS just simply is about overcoming the BS that the world brings, challenges that come about. We all go through them. I don't care your social influence, maybe your financial status, all that. Something will come up. It's going to be like, man, what's that about? But it's not about the challenge. It's about how do you overcome it? So using that creativity and the messaging of helping people stay motivated, wanting to strive and be better than them in themselves, but also what the creativity of that clothing allows me to do, expression, having one feel better about themselves. My first job before the National Football League was I sold clothes my junior and senior year in high school. So seeing when someone put on a new t-shirt or a new outfit and the way they light up is different than when someone gets their haircut or a fresh shave. You just feel better about yourself. So what fills my cup is helping people become better versions of themselves while helping them dress up to feel more powerful inside.
I gotta get some swag. I'm gonna after this show, I'm gonna go order some stuff. Make sure that I'm feeling good. I agree with that totally. Okay, so the title of this show, as you know, is The It Factory. And I think the it factor, that phrase, is the most overused, undefinable phrase in sport. So how would you define your it factor when I'm going to make you again reflect back on your career. But what do you think it was or it is?
I had a no quit mentality. I didn't care what the team we were facing. It could have been number one in the country. It could be, coach went down with COVID. He's not available for the week, or it could be, your head coach get hired and he goes on to another place, right? The transfer portal wasn't around when we were in school. So these young athletes have challenges that they may not be coming, and that it factor may not just be because of your physical capability. For me, what I rested on was, I don't care what the challenge is. I don't care what the journey may look like. I'm not giving up. So people often ask me, how did you come up with your goals? How did you set your goals? And very simple. I say this, it should be small ones to help you get to a bigger one. So for me being a running back, my goal every game was to get 25 yards at least a quarter, 100-yard game. That's a great game for a running back. But if you only look at it from a status of a quarter, 25 yards is not a lot. Why only 25 yards? It wasn't so much about just having a quarter that I was satisfied with. It was the bigger goal. And if things got down, if we had a turnover, or the defense was just ready for us as a running game, I knew there were going to be challenges. But there were going to be some games I have a 100-yard quarter. It wasn't about those games. It was being consistent and showing my teammates and my coaches that I was a bell cow, I was a worker. And it wasn't nothing else that was going to present itself to me that discouraged me to not believe in myself.
Please finish the sentence. In all of your experience, from playing to graduating to a clothing line and everything in between, if you were to finish the sentence, I'm curious what you would say, the following. It all comes down to.
Ooh. It all comes down to your faith in yourself. It really does. You know, I think you're gonna, as one progresses in their career, you're gonna have haters, you're gonna have doubters, and people always say, "I embrace my haters. I love my haters," but eventually that hate may get to you, or that hate may wear you down, and now you like, how do I build up? And now you're looking around for other people to build you up, and that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to raise in others. You want to have it deep down inside of you. So making sure that you're filling back yourself with happy thoughts, learning lessons from the things you may go through, seeking out others for wisdom and knowledge, reading books that you may never pick up, you thought you would never pick up, but there's a lesson, there's a nugget in that book, and it expands your mind and allows you to travel when you don't have to get on the plane. So I think the more an individual could put more in, the more a person could put back in themselves, not lose faith in themselves, and remember why they're doing what they're doing, will help you in the times that are challenging.
Damn, man. That's like a Hall of Honor speech right there. That was great.
Yeah.
Stephen, I'm so excited to have you on this. It's been a while since we've reconnected. I'll obviously see you at the Pac-12 Hall of Honor ceremony. And maybe one day, hey, we'll call a spring game again together, man.
Yeah.
Come on, I'll see you in Corvallis.
That'd be fun. I would love that, Yogi.
I love it. Thank you for coming, man. And congratulations. And I look forward to asking you when I see you again, hey, what are you celebrating about yourself?
I'm gonna have an answer that time. Yes.
I love it. Thank you very much. That is the all everything Stephen Jackson, one of the all-time greats at Oregon State, one of the all-time greats in this league, one of the all-time greats in the NFL, and he always believed in himself. And not just a side note, but to me, the headline, he also got his degree. How amazing is he in this conversation? If you want more of these conversations, just go to pac-12.com/insider. Listen to podcasts. You know what the deal. Just type in The It Factory and Yogi Roth and put in Stephen Jackson in this one. If you want to continue to listen to this one, save it, kick it off to your friends. I love this episode. I hope you did as well. Stay safe. We'll talk soon.